हेलो एवरीबॉडी के नमस्कार, मैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर विवेक गुप्ता. इज एवरीबॉडी हियर एबल टू हियर मी? हेलो, डॉक्टर दास, कैन यू हियर मी? नमस्कार, कैन यू हियर मी? मेरी आवाज आ रही है? हेलो, चलाना नहीं चाहता. डॉक्टर साहब, कैन यू हियर मी? मेरी आवाज आ रही है? चंचल, कैन यू हियर मी?
रुक जाओ, खोलने दो.
वेरी गुड. अशोकन, कैन यू हियर मी? कैन यू हियर मी?
हाँ. हेलो.
हाँ,
हाँ.
कैन यू हियर मी? अशोकन, कैन यू हियर मी?
पापा.
हाँ,
मुझे अलाउ कर दो. और मुझे को-होस्ट बना दो. को-होस्ट
तुम्हारा नाम ही नहीं आ रहा कहीं.
आ गया. को-होस्ट.
I think we have to start now. I cannot see Dr. Jack Lewin. Let me just call him. Are you connected or no? Not yet? Okay. I'm waiting. Okay. हाँ, आपका कनेक्शन हो रहा है? तो फिर उनको इंट्रोड्यूस कर देंगे, बाद में कनेक्ट। आपका कनेक्शन बार बार आ रहा है, हो नहीं रहा कनेक्शन, कनेक्टिंग टू। ओके, तो हम स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं, तो वेबिनार बीच बता दिएगा जब आ जाए, ठीक है? ओके, सो आई थिंक let me start the webinar. It's already 5 minutes late. So I am Professor Dr. Vivek Gupta, Senior Consultant Cardiologist in Apollo Hospital, New Delhi. And let me show the slide of today's presentation. Hello? डाल दिया। So we are little late. Good morning to America. Good afternoon and good evening to India and other people. So I'm Professor Dr. Vivek Gupta. So today webinar will be, I'm sharing the screen. This is we are talking about, this is webinar series 9. We all know that we are suffering for last almost 6 months. And I'm thankful to my panelists and other people who are hello. Okay, I think something went blank. So I think now everything is fine. Can you hear? Everybody can hear me?
Yes, very much.
Okay, sorry. Something went blank in my file. So we are thankful to our panelists and speakers, especially our Mr. Dr. Jack Lewin from USA, who is a health innovator, futuristic, New York, formerly CEO of Cardiovascular Research Foundation and past president of American College of Cardiology. Is very kind to be here with us. Then Honorable Mr. Kailash Vijayvargiy, he will be joining us. He's a National Secretary, General Secretary. We wanted a social message and some spiritual message from him. He's a very active worker for Bharatiya Janata Party and also the Prabhari of West Bengal. Then Dr. M.K. Das, our old friend, and he is the President of Cardiological Society of India, which is a very important society, the most important society of India for cardiologists. With a member, he will be telling a little more about how many members are there. He'll be speaking about what COVID-19 and CSI is doing, especially after unlockdown. Madam Madhvi Agarwal will be joining from Calcutta a little later, and our friend Dr. P.K. Ashokan. Dr. Omar Halak from Dubai has joined today, and he will be talking a little more because he otherwise was supposed to join on 4th June. So I can see Kailash Vijayvargiy Sahab here, and I'm thankful to him that he's been able to join us. And Madhvi Agarwal will be joining from BJP, and then Madam Susuti Malik, who is a celebrity singer from Calcutta. And Dr. Yashpal Sharma will also be joining. I'm stopping the share screen so I can see Honorable Kailash Vijayvargiy Sahab. Can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Gupta, we can hear you.
Okay, so I will be muting all, but I'm allowing the participant to unmute themselves if they're required to do so. And so I think I should start my topic. We are a little late. I will tell you that this is Facebook Live at 2 places. One is, of course, my Facebook Live, and possibly also the Facebook Live Apollo page. and also the Indians in Paris, 3 places. It is also being shown by Doc Plexus, which is our collaborator, and we have about 3.8 lakh doctors. So I welcome and I am thankful to Dr. Kritika Dhingra, who has done this coordination and collaboration with IECR and Apollo Hospital to show live on Doc Plexus platform. So I thank everybody and I welcome everybody. I think now I should start talking myself, and then we'll take Dr. Jack Lewin from USA. I'm unmuting him. Can you hear me, Jack? He's a very important.
Yes.
Okay, welcome to our IECR webinar once again. You have to reduce your light a little on the back so that you can be visible a little more better. You can do on your own. The back lights a little less so that you will be more clear, your face. Then I just say namaskar to Kailash Vijayvargiy sahab. I think he's still busy. Can you hear me? Namaskar. Okay, namaste. So I think I will start my talk. I will be a little less today, and I'll talk only 10-15 minutes, and then I will hand over the mic to Dr. Jack Lewin from USA, and then there will be a social message from Honorable Kailash Vijayvargiy sahab. This will be the plan of presentation. So I start sharing the screen of my talk today. So what we are talking today is SARS-CoV-19, which is December 2019. We had a huge problem created through China or by China, we don't know. I will be a little skeptical to talk about. So Indo-European Course on Revascularization has been doing education programs since 2008 with Professor Alan Crebier. And today's theme is Healthcare and Society with COVID-19, Coronavirus Disease 19. And the global perspective is very huge. This is 3 days old. I could not modify it. So we have more than 60 lakhs people suffering all over the world, and more than around touching 30 or 28 lakhs of people who have died. India's perspective is not low less. About 5,000 people have died and about 100. But India graph is still growing up. So this I will let you know a little later. So US perspective, Dr. Jack Lewin will tell with, I can show President Donald Trump, and Jack Lewin is almost equivalent because he was the president of American College of Cardiology, and Donald Trump is the president of America. He's not a doctor, but he poses as a doctor many times. Jack will tell a little more. So coming on to the highlights, the global cases go past 6 million. So this is today's highlight. 6 million means 60 lakhs people are suffering all over the world. And let me compare the deaths. Italy was the second most important country which was affected. And this is yesterday, the day before, this is the BBC News telling that 15 February, 8 April, and 31st May, the number of deaths are going down in Italy. Similarly, but on the other hand, Brazil is growing up. Brazil is the most important hotspot after USA. And the US part will be told by Jack Lewin. Again, Russia is growing up as far as deaths per day is concerned. Spain is going down. If you remember, it was China first, then Italy, and then Spain, which was most affected during March and April. And now the death rates have gone down. That means we have hopes that there will be peak and there will be coming down. So decoding the Delhi spike, I have taken this article from today newspaper. Why Delhi is growing so much up? Let me tell you, I would read this very well. On Thursday, Delhi recorded 1,000 cases of the coronavirus disease. Jack, and we all know from India, and also Omar Halak from Dubai, that India at the moment is having about 8 to 9,000 new cases per day. So the graph is still not down, and the Delhi recorded 1,000 cases of the coronavirus disease yesterday. It conducted 7,000 tests. It had a positivity rate of 13.4%. This is very important. 13.4% is the positivity of the test which is conducted by Delhi. So earlier, let me tell you, we were doing only testing about 1,500 per million. This was about 1 month back. Our testing capacity has gone up. So we are testing about 7,000. Let me compare with other people. Germany has tested 25,000 per million. America is testing about 20,000 if I'm not wrong. Spain and Italy about 10,000. So we are increasing the testing. That could be the reason why the number have gone up. As per, there are three separate issues. The first is the increase in cases. This is not a reason to get alarmed. But we are testing more, and that is why Delhi is also doing bad as such. So contract tracing, I'm not going to talk about detail. This is an important slide. Between January 22 and 30, the ICMR tested 1 million people and discovered 40,000 COVID positive cases. The data shows that the younger people and the men were slightly more likely to be getting affected. Lockdown will still be necessary. That is why our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has still continued lockdown. But unfortunately or fortunately, because of economic issues, the various chief ministers are given independence to take their own views, and that is how Delhi is unlocking slowly but definitely, which is a big concern for us. This is a big concern for the medical side. So the US tragedy, the Brazil tragedy, I'm not going to talk about. Overall death 350,000 as of now. Possible vaccine will be possible. India has gone up at the level of 7th most affected countries, 7th, which was earlier way down. So India has gone, is still working. We are working hard, and we are in 87 days, 15,000 cases and 300 deaths. This is what India is. COVID count go growing up. This is an important slide, and also this is an important slide. We take a look at how different countries have enforced and relaxed lockdown norms at different stages of their outbreak, and how India is an outlier. So it is the only country which has started relaxing its lockdown before the flattening of the curve. This is an important part I would like to tell you, that Peru, Mexico, Chile, Brazil, USA, United Kingdom, Spain, Russia, Italy, Germany, France, they started easing the lockdown when the curve was flattening. While India has still started lockdown while the curve is going up. So this is something which has to be taken care. You can see the Indian curve is like this. So this is not a good thought process for us. We are healthcare workers, cardiac cath, we are using the PPE, we are using the face shield to do the cath lab. This is how Apollo Hospital, where I am working, is prepared. This was the news on TV, Bharat Live, and I was speaking about how Apollo is prepared. We are doing angioplasty. There's a huge economic burden. Not going to details. I'll skip few slides. So coming on to the thought, this process that this is a virus disease. We all know this is a virus disease. As corona S protein has been reported as a significant determinant of virus entry into host cells. I will just touch upon the major part of this part, because we have to tell, because a lot of people are watching who are not doctors. And there are, of course, doctors who are not cardiologists and they are not virologists. The virus enters the cell, its antigen will be presented to the antigen presentation cells, the central part of the body, antiviral immunity. So we know that we have to develop immunity, and that is why we talk of herd immunity. We talk that if your immunity level is high, you are more safe, and only 80% people will be safer, and 20%, depending upon the pair where you are, will be dying. So SARS IgM specific antibody disappear at the end of week 12, while the IgG antibody can last for a longer time. And we all know this. That is why cytokine storm is the nail in the coffin, will trigger a violent attack. And a lot of patients who have died, they die finally because of multi-organ failure. The diagnosis of COVID-19 is basically from pneumonia, symptoms of cough, fever, and dyspnea. And diagnosis is basically made by the test which is known as PCR test, which is a test taken from the throat swab. Unfortunately, respiratory secretions are tested. It takes about 8 hours to 14 hours for the report to come. And that is one of the important problem with this testing. CT scan is also important for the diagnosis. Sometimes you have a false negative PCR test. That means the patient is actually suffering from COVID-19, but the CT scan will still remain normal. Antibody testing is basically key to success. PCR test and testing is the key to success. As I told you, that now we have developing the antibody test, which is a rapid test, gives the result in 15 minutes. And the test, NIV, National Institute of Virology, Pune, has developed the kit. So as I told you in the beginning, that now we are testing about 9,000 patients per day, and India plans to conduct 1.25 lakh PCR tests a day. The most difficult part of this thing is a 13% positivity. Earlier it was 10%. So corona is spreading like anything in India, and we are worried. And increasing testing of asymptomatic cases essential after lockdown is over. And this is a slide which is coming. The newspaper is telling a lot of things, and I'm picking up the important part. This is total infection, detected cases, and symptomatic cases. So yesterday, the ICMR guidelines also came. There was a plea that ICMR said that all asymptomatic need not to be tested. But there was a PIL in the court, and they said that you have to test everybody, those people who are working with the doctors, especially the healthcare workers, even if they're asymptomatic, if they're working in the COVID ward, have to be tested. So that places, this is virus, they enter the cell for medical community, and hydroxychloroquine works here, and remdesivir, which is antiviral, works at the level of RNA-dependent RNA polymerase reaction. Hydroxychloroquine only I will not talk much about now, because I was reading in the newspaper that hydroxychloroquine is actually not being utilized in USA. If you remember 2 months back, the president of USA, Mr. Donald Trump, requested Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji to stop the curb of import, and that is why a huge amount of hydroxychloroquine was actually exported out of India to USA and other countries. Indian Council of Medical Research is still very clear that it should be used by all for the prophylaxis. Prophylaxis means prevention. And they had the guidelines recently. Touching upon the French perspective, this is Professor Didier Marseille. He released an article on April 9 of 1,000 patients of hydroxychloroquine was useful with a 91% success rate. But later on, there was an article coming from, earlier it was an article from China that shows the utility. That was February, but a lot of water has flown down the river after this February and April study, especially FDA initially allowing on 28 March the utilization of hydroxychloroquine. Later on, FDA said that the emergency use only, and then there was a U-turn by the Americans, and they said there was an article in Lancet with 25,000 people about 1 week back, which show that it is harmful. So, but there are a lot of issues with that Lancet article. I have also read it. Personally, I feel in the absence, I have read that there are a lot of loopholes. They have selected only the patients who are obese, diabetics, and heart patients, and their hydroxychloroquine was utilized indiscriminately without checking the QTC interval. So you have to use hydroxychloroquine discriminately, and therefore I would suggest personally that hydroxychloroquine should be used in all patients of COVID in the absence of any specific medicine, and also for prevention, which ICMR has given. Indian Council of Medical Research has given a new guideline only 3 days back with a suggestion that it should still be used. The cardiac toxicity is not much. This is an article yesterday. US hospitals stop using HCQ as it may pose a risk. They're all guided by the Lancet article. So I'm not going to details, but our strategy is to use hydroxychloroquine with caution, with checking of ECG every day, with QTC intervals. Apollo Hospital Delhi has 87 beds. We have a lot of patients who are serious. I am giving hydroxychloroquine. I'm checking hydroxychloroquine, the QTC interval every day. Repurposed medicines are very important because in the absence of a specific antiviral medicine, we have to depend on the medicine which is there. I want to again highlight my father, Dr. M.L. Gupta, who is a researcher who has proposed to the Prime Minister office for one important medicine which is still pending. So I would request ICMR through this platform to clear this. You see, the medicines which are safe and which has some antiviral or some other activity which can be promising should be given a trial, which is just a 14 days trial. And I spoke to the Prime Minister office, the Joint Secretary today. Important medicine which has come only yesterday, Nofamostat, has been shown a promising data against COVID-19. And the Sun Pharma has allowed this to be using a trial. This is again a repurposed medicine. The other repurposed medicines, ivermectin is important anti-protozoal medicine which has shown promise with antiviral activity of 55,000 times. That means the patient will be treated the 5,000-fold reduction of RNA in ivermectin in vitro. The human trial has started in USA and we're still waiting for the results. So coming back to the other topic, remdesivir is important antiviral medicine. Today I was just reaching that Glenmark Pharma and other pharma have got the rights to sell in India. Till yesterday it was not available. This is FDA approved antiviral medicine which is possibly useful in COVID-19. This is the only medicine other are repurposed medicine. And today India, from tomorrow, India will also be having the antiviral medicines. Another combination, Roche and Glide to test drug combination. The combination, the two medicines which are being tested, remdesivir with another antiviral medicine will be used. Coming on to the mask, only one sentence I will tell you. Everybody has to wear mask. There's no doubt in this. On the outside the house, inside the house, I am telling you. I will, Honorable Kailash Vijayvargiy must be listening. I was the first person, one of the first person on 26 March to say that mask should be used by everyone on the road. And later on, I use the word. Let me show you if you can hear it. So I used the word angocha, and later on our Prime Minister himself used gamcha. And at that time, 29th of March, people were not very much convinced with me that actually mask is for everybody on the road. And I thought that this is possibly airborne or 2 meter distance.
Dr. Vivek, no sound, please.
There's no sound. Vivek, no sound. Vivek, no sound. We cannot hear you.
हाँ आवाज नहीं आ रही।
म्यूट कर दे रहा हूँ।
डॉक्टर विवेक आप अनम्यूट कीजिए। डॉक्टर विवेक,
Vivek, you need to, you're muted.
क्यों
कहाँ पे आ रहा था अभी?
Somehow,
Can you hear? I think we can request Dr. Jack Lewin to start his presentation.
okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, you lost sound for the last couple of minutes.
Okay, so you can start your presentation.
All right, will do.
I'll fix up the things.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, and good morning, everyone. This is Jack Lewin. I'm speaking to you in New York City today. It's an honor to be with you. I'm an internal medicine and critical care physician.
Am I audible now?
You can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah. And as Dr. Gupta has stated, I ran the American College of Cardiology and met many of you back in those days, as well as through the TCT meetings when I was the president and CEO of the Cardiovascular Research Foundation here in New York City. Currently, I am chairman of the board of the National Coalition on Healthcare in Washington, D.C., which is a policy body that represents about 50% of Americans. And we've been working hard on the COVID issue, and I'll talk to you a little bit about where we are and what's happened. I think most of you know, COVID came to the U.S. first on the West Coast in Seattle, Washington, and in California, and it probably came directly from the Wuhan area. But the main infection in the United States was a slightly different viral strain that came from the European Union to the U.S. As you may know, in the New York City alone, which of course has a very dense population, there are about 5 million international visitors a month or more who come to New York. And so during the months of January and February, millions of people were coming to the U.S. and some of them had COVID and really didn't know it. So the infection took hold. I'll give you a little history of this. First of all, the United States has not dealt with this infection very well, partly because of a lack of leadership at the Washington level, where the effort has been left up to each state and the governors of each state. But we had a late response during the month of March. We really didn't have any public health measures in place, and the infection spread rapidly throughout the United States. We also had testing. And the FDA was slow to allow approvals of other tests from other places. So we had a late response in terms of social distancing, public health measures, recommendation of wearing masks, and other typical public health interventions, and the absence of testing. Now the United States is about 9 weeks past the beginning of the shutdown, the quarantining of the population, and each of the 50 states is beginning to reopen. There's a lot of fear about that because we know that there's still a significant part of the population has not been exposed and is virus naive and therefore vulnerable. And as you recall, in New York, the hospitals were overwhelmed. We had, people, there was just a complete total takeover of all beds in all the hospitals across the city with COVID patients, no elective procedures. And in fact, the hospitals were completely overwhelmed. We were seeing more than 1,000 deaths a day in this city only, okay? And New York City has been the epicenter for the whole of the United States, and New York State has really been the most severely affected state of all. But it's also been the most successful state in terms of flattening the curve and actually seeing an improvement and a return. We are now at a place where there are fewer than 50 deaths per day. That's still 50 deaths too many. and less than 1,000 new infections a day. And we're testing hundreds of thousands of people every day in New York. We're doing more testing than any place in the world. So I can tell you more about that in a few minutes. There's still a great fear about this reopening and relaxation of the public health standards when 90% of Americans have not been exposed to the virus. Currently, as you've seen, there are demonstrations happening in the United States and a lot of civil unrest in 140 cities because of the unfortunate death, which was a murder of a black man in Minneapolis by police, witnessed by everyone on videotape. And in response to that, the African-American community and many others have been demonstrating in the cities. While they're wearing masks, we're very fearful that these demonstrations are also going to spread the infection around the country and create a second wave. Some of the facts that we do know right now about this infection, in terms of of its morbidity and mortality, we're getting better science, although really so much is uncertain and still unclear about the science of COVID. We know that about 80% of the people who are severely affected are over 60 years of age, but many younger people have been affected in New York and across the country. And it certainly is. And as you recall, that the autoimmune reaction in children causing a severe inflammatory disease and coronary inflammation and multi-system damage appears to be an autoimmune response to COVID in children who have this autoimmune response 2 weeks after they've gotten over their symptoms, if they had symptoms at all, as most children are asymptomatic. In the boroughs of New York, Brooklyn, and Bronx, we are now in the high 40% of people who test positive for antibodies. That means nearly half the population has been infected with COVID. Across the entire New York City, it's about 20% on average. But if you look at the rest of the state of New York, out in the rural areas, it's less than 10%. So we're nowhere near herd immunity, but in this city, which has been most severely affected and which has had the most improvement in terms of reducing hospitalizations, reducing deaths, we have a significant number of people who have been asymptomatically infected, obviously, and who have antibodies. I can talk a little more about that later. Well, as you know, and as Vivek mentioned, I mean, SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19 is an envelope, single-stranded, positive sense RNA virus. It attaches at the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptors. We've learned in the United States and around the world that patients who are taking ACE or ARB medications are not at greater risk of death or of infection, as far as we can tell thus far. But nonetheless, this is where the virus attaches. Obviously, it causes a severe acute respiratory syndrome in most patients. But the cytokine storm that occurs in people 1 week or 2 weeks after infection is what probably kills most of the patients. So we have been thinking a lot about how to therapeutically respond to this, and we're learning a lot. So in addition to the acute respiratory syndrome, the inflammatory immune response and the cytokine storm is certainly responsible for many deaths. Whether or not the multi-organ damage is due to hypoxemia alone, which is a logical possibility, or whether it's direct viral impact is yet to be learned. So there's still a lot in terms of pathophysiology that we need to know. I want to talk about cardiovascular disease and COVID-19 a bit now. We know from the data that we've gathered here in the United States, and particularly in New York State, that people with pre-existing cardiovascular disease have very bad outcomes and are at much higher risk. In fact, 5 times the risk of dying of other patients. Also, hypertension, obesity, immune compromise, and other chronic conditions can contribute to this. But cardiovascular disease is probably the most serious pre-existing risk factor. Patients here often presented in crisis with cardiogenic shock, even though their symptoms were acute respiratory syndrome. Nonetheless, they had cardiogenic shock. Many patients showed evidence on admission. These are the most seriously affected with myocardial injury or myocarditis. And in fact, patients presented with myocardial infarction and heart failure exacerbations. And we don't know yet to what extent these were due to pre-existing conditions or the massive impact of the inflammatory response of the virus. We've also known, and we've seen worldwide, coagulopathies due to COVID-19, and then venous thromboembolic events. In America and in New York in particular, these events have occurred very frequently in younger people with no previous cardiovascular issues. They present with a stroke or present with severe embolic disease, and completely amazing. So this has been something that maybe has helped younger people take the disease more seriously when they see, very healthy friends who end up with a stroke or a severe thromboembolic event. In terms of the patients with myocardial injury, myocarditis, MI, so forth, coagulopathies, all of those patients end up with higher risk while they're hospitalized for COVID of myocardial infarction and heart failure. And in fact, all patients should have troponin levels measured, because elevated troponin is a severe risk factor for cardiovascular complications. When my colleagues in New York are saying that the presentation of cardiovascular disease here is closer to ACS, to acute coronary syndrome, than it is to STEMI in most cases, but we do see STEMI presentations. And we have been doing PCI procedures on those patients as part of the treatment here on a regular basis. We are beginning to think that anticoagulation for people with cardiovascular risk factors and cardiovascular presentations is a beneficial therapeutic approach. We're seeing acute heart failure in more than 20% of people with these severe cardiovascular complications, and many develop cardiomyopathy as well. Again, we don't know whether these were due to underlying and maybe undiagnosed cardiovascular risks, or these could be, in some cases, direct impacts of COVID and its inflammatory sequelae. So, and dysrhythmias have been a significant part of the cardiovascular picture with COVID here in the United States. Now, because of the economic collapse where we shut down the economy of the United States, and this happened in most countries around the world, and because of the fear of COVID that people have, we've also seen a very significant increase in cardiovascular disease because patients failed to come in for essential treatment when they had the symptoms of myocardial infarction or exacerbations of heart failure. So these two problems, the fear of patients to come in and get treated, and the economic and stress factors have caused us to see an increased number. And we're having trouble sorting out the impact of these deaths and these admissions with respect to the primary COVID cause. In terms of treatment, I think Vivek went through some important points. I won't try to repeat those. We do think that remdesivir has shown some improvement with studies that have been done here in the US of at least a reduced hospitalization stay for people with those. And we don't know yet about the prevention strategy, so research is underway. As Vivek said, hydroxychloroquine appears not to be helpful for patients who are hospitalized with COVID. And in fact, in the New York State study, which involved about 20,000 patients in combination with Connecticut, Boston, Philadelphia, Washington, it was an East Coast study, we felt that hydroxychloroquine was not helpful. Whether it's helpful as a prevention measure is yet to be determined. Some centers have felt that interferon and ribavirin have been helpful. Again, we need more research to know. And tocilizumab and prednisone to try to curb the inflammatory response are being used in most institutions, and we're trying to understand whether this is how helpful this is. So, in other words, trying to block the immune response. In the future, we are very concerned that there is a likelihood, as with other coronaviruses, of a second wave in the fall. And so part of the reason that that's such a concern for us is we're relaxing all the public health standards and sending people back to work. And what we know here in New York is that 1 out of 3 people infected with COVID is asymptomatic, and they're walking around spreading the virus everywhere they go. And that's true even in the healthcare system. So, that is an issue. Obviously, in the future, with treatment uncertain, we're waiting for a vaccine to try to really reduce the fear, get the economy back going, and so forth. But because of the issue of the lack of robust testing, that has been a difficult problem. I have been working on a program here with the Veterans Administration and also with the FDA and with other federal agencies. It's a program I call Rebooting America. And the idea of Rebooting America is to get people back to work safely, to prevent the spread of infection while people are working, but to use a scientific, data-driven approach to get people safely back to work. This can only happen when 2 things are possible. One is very frequent available testing, both serological antibody testing and polymerase chain reaction or PCR testing. Both are needed, and we're ramping up to be able to have those kind of tests. The National Institutes on Health announced this week that they're going to put $1.5 billion into a program to develop new test options that can be done as a point of care or even a home test with much better accuracy, much better sensitivity and specificity than the current antibody tests have. So, but these new tests are coming, and in fact, at Harvard, at MIT, and some of the East Coast institutions, we're working on CRISPR vaccines, vaccines that will be that will be both antigen and antibody tests that will cost as little as $5, results in 5 minutes, and can be done anywhere at point of care. So I think we're going to see some great innovation and testing coming up in the future that should help us allow people to go back to work safely with frequent testing and contact tracing. The contact tracing area in the United States is somewhat controversial because the big tech companies like Google and Facebook and others are looking at ways to do, and Apple are looking at ways to do contact tracing using cell phones and people's actual movement around, and so that you could actually be determining who has come in contact with somebody that's positive using cell phone data. There's some privacy issues there that concern people, but we're learning quite a bit about this now as it goes forward. I think the Rebooting America project that I've been working on is going to get fully launched in about a month or so. We have to ramp up, and we'll be testing every Veterans Administration employee, and we'll be retesting frequently. We'll be doing contact tracing. We'll be working on community risks for those employees, and we'll try to identify new infections and asymptomatic infections immediately, and follow up with contact tracing to allow people to come back to work and work safely. Herd immunity in the United States is not going to happen for 2 years probably. So we're going to have to wait for a vaccine to solve this problem. But meanwhile, we should all be aware that the cardiovascular impacts and complications of COVID are very serious, very severe, and in many cases are going undertreated and underdiagnosed. So that's our job in the cardiovascular space, to try to improve the cardiovascular complications of COVID. And we can do that together. Thank you, Vivek. I'm open for questions.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jack Lewin. And because there are many speakers after this, especially Dr. M.K. Das from CSI, and then Dr. P.K. Ashokan, Dr. Yashpal Sharma, Dr. Omar Halak from Dubai. But I request the Honorable Mr. Kailash Vijayvargiy ji, he's actually traveling and stopped his car, and he's now Zoom on live. So I request him to give some social message. Let me tell you, Jack, he's a very important person, very close to Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji and our Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah. He's a BJP National General Secretary. of India, National General Secretary, and he's basically from Indore, Madhya Pradesh, and he's highly respected. He sings quite a good bhajan and songs also, but I don't know whether he has time for that or so, but I request for his spiritual and social message. Please go ahead, sir.
थैंक यू डॉक्टर विवेक एंड सभी मित्रों को नमस्कार। मैं क्षमा चाहता हूँ, ट्रैवल कर रहा हूँ। मैंने विवेक जी को जब समय दिया था तब मुझे पता नहीं था कि मेरी ऑनरेबल सीएम के साथ मीटिंग है। अचानक मुझे मीटिंग में भोपाल आना पड़ा, इसलिए ट्रैवल करते हुए मैं बात कर रहा हूँ और हो सकता है कि कहीं बीच बीच में आपको मेरी आवाज़ सुनाई नहीं दे। निश्चित रूप से मैं इसे एक वर्ल्ड वार मानता हूँ, मैं इसे एक विश्व युद्ध मानता हूँ, और एक ऐसा विश्व युद्ध जो कि हम लड़ाई तो लड़ रहे हैं पर हमें हमारा जिसके ऊपर हमला करना हो व्यक्ति दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है, क्योंकि वैक्सीन अभी तक हमें प्रॉपर हम बना नहीं पाए। ऐसे समय में हमें चाहिए कि हम उन सब प्रोटोकॉल का समाज के अंदर पालन करवाएं जिससे कि इस बीमारी से बचा जा सके। आप सब एलोपैथी डॉक्टर हैं, मैं आपसे एक रिक्वेस्ट और करना चाहूँगा कि भारत के अंदर जो आयुर्वेदिक चिकित्सा है उसमें आयुष मंत्रालय ने कुछ इम्यूनिटी बढ़ाने के लिए बहुत सारे काढ़े और मेडिसिन की भी रिकमेंड किया है। आप जब एलोपैथिक ट्रीटमेंट करें तो उसके साथ साथ मैं समझता हूं कि कुछ ऐसी चीजें भी प्रोवाइड कराएं जो कि इम्यूनिटी पावर जो लोगों का होता है वो बढ़ सके, और वो आयुर्वेद में बहुत है। और किचन के अंदर हल्दी है, हमारे हींग है, हमारे किचन में अजवान है, तो हमारे जो ऋषि मनीषियों ने जो मसाले दिए हैं जो दुनिया में कहीं नहीं पाए जाते हैं वो हमारे देश में के अंदर है। और इसलिए हमारे यहाँ जो आयुर्वेद है उसके ऊपर भी एक रिसर्च करने की आवश्यकता है। तो क्यों नहीं हम जब डॉक्टर्स यहाँ पर बैठे हुए हैं अपने पेशेंट का एलोपैथी दवाइयों से इलाज कर रहे हैं, तो हमें कुछ आयुर्वेदिक भी चीजें जो कि इम्यूनिटी पावर बढ़ाती है, जो कि प्रतिरोध क्षमता बढ़ाती है मरीज की, उसके लिए हम उपयोग करें। मैं आपको सलाह देना चाहूंगा, क्योंकि हमने इंदौर में बहुत बड़ी प्रॉब्लम थी। में आपने देखा होगा कि डेथ रेट भी बहुत ज्यादा था, पर हमने जब इस आयुर्वेद का उपयोग किया, हमारे यहाँ हॉस्पिटल के अंदर दूध के साथ हल्दी और दूध दिया जाता है, च्यवनप्राश दिया जाता है। जो पेशेंट है, जो पॉजिटिव कोरोना के पेशेंट है, उनको हम च्यवनप्राश दे रहे हैं। इससे कि लोगों की वास्तव में डेथ रेट कम हुआ है, इम्यूनिटी पावर बढ़ा है और जल्दी से वो बीमारी से बाहर आ गए। भारत एक बहुत ही ऐसा देश है जहाँ पर आध्यात्मिक वर्ल्ड में भारत का अपना अलग स्थान है। हमारे यहाँ योग है, प्राणायाम है, ये सब हमारे शरीर को स्वस्थ रखने का एक बहुत बड़ा माध्यम है। आज मैं समझता हूँ कि प्राणायाम हमारे रेस्पिरेटरी सिस्टम मजबूत करता है। दुनिया के अंदर इसको बताना आवश्यक है। सिर्फ आप 1 घंटे प्राणायाम करें, 1 घंटे योगा करें, 1 घंटे यदि आप व्यायाम करें, तो मैं समझता हूँ कि इसके वायरस से हमारे आ सकती है। और इसलिए भारतीय आयुर्वेद चिकित्सा पद्धति, भारतीय योग पद्धति, भारतीय जो हमारे मसाले हैं उसको समझकर हमें दुनिया को भारत की विशेषताओं के बारे में बताना चाहिए। और मैं समझता हूँ जिस प्रकार इंदौर ने प्रयोग किया है, आयुष के काढ़े पिलाकर, च्यवनप्राश खिलाकर और हल्दी का दूध देकर, जो आयुर्वेद चिकित्सा के साथ साथ एलोपैथिक का काफी डेथ रेट कम हुई है, और इसको शायद प्रचार प्रसार करें तो निश्चित रूप से इसका लाभ मरीजों को होगा। मुझे इस बात को बताते हुए बहुत गर्व है कि वे सब देश बहुत ही संपन्न देश माने जाते हैं, उसकी तुलना में यदि भारत में जो नुकसान हुआ है, जो इसका प्रभाव हुआ है, वो बहुत कम हुआ है। 100 आबादी वाले देश में यदि नेतृत्व कुशल नहीं होता, यदि मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में सही समय पर टफ डिसीजन नहीं लिया होता, तो शायद ये संख्या बहुत बड़ी होती। पर मुझे गर्व है कि मोदी जी का नेतृत्व, देश की जनता ने उनके पीछे खड़े होकर उन सारी बातों का पालन किया जो मोदी जी ने अपने मन की बात में कहा। तो आज हमारे यहाँ नुकसान तो हुआ है किंतु कम हुआ है। मैं इस बात के लिए प्रसन्नता व्यक्त कर सकता हूं कि भारत उतना संपन्न देश नहीं है जितने की यूरोप के देश हैं, जितने की यूएस है, और वहां पर जिस प्रकार का नुकसान हुआ उसकी तुलना में भारत में नुकसान कम है, और उसका श्रेय जाता है हमारे पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप को। तो मैं एक बार फिर से पूरी दुनिया के लोग जो जुड़े हुए हैं उन्हें शुभकामनाएं देता हूं कि ये कोरोना का संकट से हम जल्दी से उभरें, क्योंकि इसके बहुत सारे दूसरे परिणाम भी है। आर्थिक मंदी एक बहुत समाज को प्रभावित कर रही है, बेरोजगारी ये बहुत समाज को प्रभावित कर रही है। इसलिए इससे जितनी जल्दी हम निजात पा सकें, हम सब मिलकर इसका निजात पाए, और एक बार फिर से दुनिया की दौड़ में हम सब आगे बढ़ें। मेरी शुभकामनाएं विवेक गुप्ता जी, आपके इस प्रयास की मैं सराहना करता हूं, और सभी मित्रों को जो सुन रहे हैं उन्हें क्षमा भी चाहता हूं, क्योंकि मुझे घर में बैठकर आप लोगों से चर्चा करना थी, किंतु मैं ट्रैवल करते हुए चर्चा कर रहा हूं। बीच में कहीं आपको डिस्टर्बेंस हुआ तो मैं क्षमा चाहता हूं। आप सबके प्रति मेरी शुभकामनाएं। आप सब डॉक्टर्स हैं या चिकित्सा जगत से जुड़े हुए लोग हैं, निश्चित रूप से आज के समय में आप भगवान का स्वरूप है। भगवान के बाद यदि मरीज किसी को अपने विश्वास की दृष्टि से देखता है तो डॉक्टर्स को देखता है, तो आप भगवान स्वरूप हैं। ऐसे समय में आप अपनी सेवा के माध्यम से समाज को इस कोरोना के वायरस से छुटकारा दिलाएं, यही मेरा निवेदन है। एक बार फिर से आपका अभिनंदन करता हूँ, स्वागत करता हूँ, और क्षमा चाहता हूँ कि विलंब से भी आया और जल्दी जा रहा हूँ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद विवेक जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर काइंड वर्ड्स। आपने बड़ा अच्छी तरीके से समझाया, और आपने जो च्यवनप्राश की बात बताई है, हमारे फादर भी इसको बारे में कह रहे थे। इज अ फार्माकोलॉजिस्ट, जैसा मैंने बताया था अपने प्रेजेंटेशन में, उन्होंने काफी रिसर्च करी है। तो च्यवनप्राश और हल्दी, आई थिंक इम्यूनिटी इज द बेस्ट थिंग टू टैकल दिस। अगर इम्यूनिटी ज्यादा होगी तो इफ यू आर इन्फेक्टेड तो आप वेंटिलेटर तक नहीं पहुंचेंगे। वी हैव मेनी स्पीकर्स। अगर थोड़ा सा 5 मिनट और रुक पाए तो मैं एक इंट्रोडक्शन देना चाहूंगा। जो लोग यहाँ पे वेट कर रहे हैं, डॉक्टर एम.के. दास इज द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ कार्डियोलॉजिकल सोसाइटी ऑफ इंडिया। ही विल बी स्पीकिंग सून आफ्टर यू। देन वी हैव सुस्वती मलिक, शी इज अ सिंगर फ्रॉम कोलकाता, जहाँ के आप प्रभारी रहे हैं। She will be also speaking some special message. Dr. Omar Halak will be speaking, Dr. from Dubai, और अपने ये from PK Ashokan from Kerala, and Madhvi Agarwal will join later on from Kolkata. She's a BJP media panelist from this. So we have a lot of people, and since Swaswati Malik has to go for another teaching, I will just request her to give a very brief 3-4 minutes message. And if you can join back later on when the doc plexus is finished, if you can sing some songs at the end of during the end of the show, I'll be grateful. Please go ahead. सुश्रुति जी, आप बोलिए।
नमस्कार, सभी को मेरा प्रणाम, सभी को मेरा नमस्कार। आई होप मैं ऑडिबल हूँ।
परफेक्ट, गुड एंड लाउड।
थैंक यू सो मच फॉर इनवाइटिंग मी। इतना अच्छा इनिशिएटिव आप लोगों ने लिया है, थैंक यू सो मच। मैं कुछ देर पहले ही कैलाश जी जो बोल रहे थे उनको सुन रही थी। तो यस, मैं ऐसे एक देश से बिलोंग करती हूँ जहाँ पे सोना उगता है, जहाँ पे मेडिसिन हमारे घरों घरों में है। तो हाँ, आज हम हैं डॉक्टर्स, सारे जितने भी इंडिया के जितने भी टॉप मोस्ट डॉक्टर्स हैं, जिनको मैं यहाँ पे जानती भी हूँ। विवेक सर आपको जानती हूँ, दास अंकल अभी आने वाले हैं, दास अंकल को मैं जानती हूँ, काफी डॉक्टर्स को मैं जानती हूँ। और हमारे यहाँ पे तो खजाना है, औषधि का, नेचुरल रिसोर्स का खजाना है, जैसा कि कैलाश जी बोल रहे थे। और मैं यही बोलना चाहती हूँ कि माहौल, you guys are the professional, you guys right now for the patients, for हमारे समाज के लिए आप ही लोग हमारे भगवान हैं। हाँ, शायद मैं बहुत ड्रामेटिक साउंड कर रही हूँ, लेकिन yes, this is true। अभी आप ही हमारे करता धरता हो और आप ही हमको बचा सकते हो। तो थैंक यू सो मच सभी। पहले तो मैं सभी डॉक्टर्स का नमन करना चाहती हूँ। थैंक यू सो मच कि आप लोग कोई भी हॉलीडेज नहीं है, कुछ भी नहीं है, डे नाइट आप लोग सिर्फ कोविड पेशेंट को लेके, सिर्फ कोविड पेशेंट नहीं, काफी जितने भी और भी केसेस है, जितने भी हमारे ऐसे नॉर्मल केसेस रहते हैं उनके लिए भी आप दिन रात इतनी मेहनत कर लो, उसके लिए मैं थैंक यू बोलना चाहती हूँ। और मैं सबको यही बोलना चाहती हूँ कि मुश्किल की घड़ी है और हमें एक साथ एकजुट होके चलना है। और मुझे इतनी टेक्निकल बातें तो इतनी आती नहीं है, लेकिन आई एम फीलिंग रियली वेरी ग्लैड कि मैं आज यहाँ पे आई हूँ। सिर्फ 2 लाइन ही बोलना चाहती हूँ। ऐ जिंदगी गले लगा ले, हमने भी तेरे हर एक गम को गले से लगाया है ना। हम सारे जो डॉक्टर्स हैं, सारे जो सबका साथ ऐसे ही देते रहेंगे और आपको एकदम हौसला हम देते रहेंगे, आपका साथ निभाते रहेंगे और आप हमारे साथ ऐसे ही रहेंगे। थैंक यू सो मच। और मेरे बाद भी काफी लोग बोलने वाले हैं, सारे मेरे जाने पहचाने डॉक्टर्स अंकल लोग बोलने वाले हैं। थैंक यू सो मच फॉर कॉलिंग मी हियर। और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। और अगर हो सके, अगर मेरी क्लास खत्म हो जाए, अगर हो सके तो मैं बाद में फिर से आने की कोशिश करूंगी। बहुत अच्छा लगा कैलाश जी आपसे मिलके। और मैंने सुना आप भजन भी गाते हो, तो कभी मौका मिलेगा तो हम जरूर सुनेंगे। थैंक यू सो मच एवरीबॉडी एंड प्लीज टेक केयर ऑफ योरसेल्फ। हमारे साथ हमारे जितने भी डॉक्टर्स हैं जो अभी फिलहाल हमारे लिए भगवान है, अभी नहीं हमेशा हमारे लिए भगवान वही है, क्योंकि हमें हर मुसीबतों से बचाने वाले यही है। और नेचुरल रिसोर्स जैसे कि च्यवनप्राश, हल्दी, हमारे मसालों में काफी औषधियाँ है। यू कैन यूज इट एज वेल फॉर इम्यूनिटी पावर। मैं तो लेती हूँ। मैं रात को सोते वक्त गोल्डन मिल्क जिसे बोला जाता है, मिल्क में एक थोड़ा सा टर्मरिक मिला के मैं पीती हूँ, उससे बहुत ज्यादा इम्यूनिटी पावर आता है। और हाँ, दिन में आई थिंक विटामिन सी मुझे उतना आता नहीं है, मैं नौसिखिया हूँ, आप लोगों को आता है। सो इफ कुछ गलती हो गई तो वेरी सॉरी। मैं जो टोटके आजमाती हूँ मैं वही बोल रही हूँ। आप विटामिन सी ले सकते हो, जो कि लेमन वगैरह साइट्रिक एसिड वाले जितने भी फूड है, विटामिन सी है। विटामिन सी से भी इम्यूनिटी पावर बहुत ज्यादा तेज रहती है। सर्दी, खांसी, जुकाम, गले में दर्द सभी जाती है। हनी, you can use honey as well. So thank you so much for inviting me here. And Vivek sir, thank you so much for inviting me here. Thank you so much. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Saraswati. If you can join back later on when Doc Plexus will be over, we'll have nice to like
I
to hear
will
you.
definitely try. Thank you so much, Vivek sir. Thank you.
थैंक यू। अब कैलाश जी अगर आप यहाँ रुकेंगे तो मैं अब रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा अपने CSI प्रेसिडेंट डॉक्टर M.K. दास को, प्लीज कम एंड ज्वाइन एंड स्टार्ट सम डिस्कशन विद डॉक्टर जैक लुविन. And I will request Kailash ji to stay back and listen to some discussion coming from America and our Indian cardiologist and Dr. Omar Halak from Dubai. So I will just take it over, give it over to Dr. M.K. Das, who's the president of Cardiological Society of India, to come and discuss about the Indian perspective and also to give highlights and discuss with Dr. Jack Lewin something what you feel pertinent in our perspective.
Good evening for Indians and Dubai people, and good morning to Dr. Lewin and all others who are listening to this very, very important meeting. In fact, I am very much thankful to Dr. Vivek Gupta, who is organizing this kind of meetings regularly. And this is the second time I have joined. And as he mentioned that I am right now the National President of Cardiological Society of India. And the Cardiological Society of India is the oldest body, not only in India, but also across the globe, because it was actually built up in the year 1948. And later, Dr. B.C. Rai was the founder president of this particular organization. And so many other people glorified this particular organization. And the main aim of the Cardiological Society is to cater not only the services to the people of India, but also across the whole region, mainly the Indian subcontinent, and also to cater the knowledge and informations and all these kind of things, which are very, very important for all of us, so that everyone is benefited. And in fact, the COVID-19 which has really been a menace to the country, and that has been tackled very, very beautifully by all the political heads. In fact, I was called as the national president to the meeting by video conference by our Prime Minister, and before the lockdown was called, and actually I was present there, and really I was appreciating his whole kind of approach regarding the lockdown. In fact, the lockdown has given lot of respite to the people. We could be prepared for the whole COVID scenario. Now we are facing bravely and effectively because of that lockdown. Now the problem of the escalation of the numbers really has started in India after at the end of the lockdown period, when the migrants and people from outside were coming back with the projects like Vande Mataram, program. So they were coming back, and they are also increasing the situation. But what Cardiological Society of India has done during this lockdown period, in a record time actually of this 1 month or so in the initial part, we sat together amongst ourselves and presented 3 documents from Cardiological Society of India. These are called position documents on myocardial infarction management, heart failure management, and how to do the echocardiography and other non-invasive tests in the scenario of COVID-19. And there, we categorically, regarding the MI management, we told that there are 3 groups of patients, and one is the COVID positive, second is the COVID suspect, and third is the COVID non-COVID patient. And so for the non-COVID patients who are concerned, we are not at all bothered about whether we should go for the angioplasty or invasive investigations or not. But we recommended that we should go slow, and we should be taking care of the only emergency kind of patients like ACS and all. And so for the COVID positive patients are concerned, it was totally guided by the decision of the treating physician, and based on the primary care facilities as well as other personal protective gears, where all the measures were there for COVID management. So in those cases, as per the discretion of the patients, the physicians, the cases were being managed in the form of primary PCI. But for the COVID suspect patient, we thought that our recommendation, as per the geography of our own country, we should go ahead with the fibrinolytic therapy rather than the invasive therapy, because the time was a very, very restraining factor in India, even before COVID scenario. And with the COVID scenario, it was supposed to cause more time lag. So we thought that that would be best management, and we carried out in the same fashion. And only in failed thrombolytic patients, we recommended the rescue angioplasty. Now, when the unlocking lockdown has been started, now automatically the scenario is changing, and we are geared up to take care of our patients in the right way. And primary angioplasties are being regularly done. But very peculiarly, we have seen in our cases that some patients are COVID negative, but after some days, or rather 1 or 2 days after the procedure has been done, we are seeing that the COVID positivity is there. And in some cases, actually, there has been severe COVID infection resulting into mortality. So that kind of scenario is also coming. But what is our experience again, that the asymptomatic patients are more. And so for the sudden cardiac death is concerned, we are not able to take or know those cases. Countries, as we know, I'm going to ask Lewin. So some of the patients are having some cardiac death or sent death rather before they get to the hospital, and naturally are not knowing those cases in India. But we are taking our patients' confidence in the all kinds of measures like social distancing, hand sanitization. Then we are also advising the doctors that you'll have to take all the protective gears and all, and not only the doctors but also all the health workers for giving.
I think there is some sound problem. Hello, can you hear me? Jack, can you hear me?
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Okay, fine.
No, I think, just a minute, I think he got unmuted. I have to unmute him.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So that's the scenario right now. Again.
Yeah, you can hear. We can hear you.
Yeah. So that's the position thing, and we are also taking care of the heart failure patients, as Dr. Lewin highlighted that MI and heart failure, these are the, or ACS scenario and heart failure, these are the two important considerations, and we are taking care of our patients. What's the message we have conveyed to the people who are having, say, ACS or heart failure or hypertension, that the treatment that were going on with the patients before the COVID scenario, they should continue the medications. There is no harm in continuation of the AC inhibitors, because it has been proved that these AC inhibitors or ARBs, they can actually offer benefits to the patients because of certain mechanisms. So at the end of my speech, I'll tell that definitely the scenario will be remaining there for quite some time to come in future. We'll have to live with it. We'll have to have a sort of new normal type of practice, and but at the same time, we'll have to carry on our important tenets of the anti-contagion process, that is the sanitization, social distancing, and all protective gears and all, which should be used by all the people. That should be the message to everyone. Now, I have got a question to Dr. Lewin. How is your experience with the sudden death in your country, especially in New York? Because there has been some reports of this from Spain and Italy, that they have encountered a lot of sudden cardiac deaths which actually could not reach the hospital. So in the COVID scenario, whether you face the same kind of things or not?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say what an honor to be here with all of you. And I've been to many CSI meetings and been a speaker, and it's always a pleasure to hear about the great work of CSI. It's a fantastic organization. Yes, we believe that many patients with sudden cardiac arrest basically were picked up by the EMS system and never made it to the hospital. We've seen there have been hundreds of patients who died suddenly at home and were not expected to. They were seen perhaps when they had some respiratory symptoms. They were sent home with medications and told to come back if their breathing distress got more serious. Many of these people may have died of cardiovascular events and never made it back to the hospital. In the hospital itself, there have been many sudden cardiac arrest situations that occurred where the patients could not be resuscitated. And in fact, resuscitation is a risk anyway, but so we do think that there's been a significant amount of sudden cardiac arrest death at the community level that patients never even made it to the hospital.
But do you think that is the cytokine storm it was responsible, or the viral myocarditis or virus getting into the myocardial cells and
Yeah.
their surge is responsible for the various kind of electrical failure as well as the
Well, we know that both things can cause it. We know that there's some patients who have viral myocarditis with culturable virus actually in the myocardium and pericardium, and there are other patients where we didn't culture the virus, and they apparently died because of the immune conditions and the systemic inflammation. So I think both circumstances. The virus has direct effect on the myocardium in some patients. Others die because of the severe inflammatory cytokine storm.
Thank you. I'll come back to you, but Dr. Hala, can you hear me, Dr. Hala?
Put it on for a second. Can you hold a second, please?
Dr. Hala?
I'm in the meeting. Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just
I come back inside again.
I
just was another line. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, I've got one question.
Yeah.
Many of our patients right now in India, they were working in the
Emirates.
Arab countries, especially in Dubai and other places, and they are coming back with the positive cases.
Right.
Now, how is the scenario in your locality in the Gulf region? Whether it is a really severe disease or you have controlled it, or what is the scenario there? Because we are getting a lot of patients coming back from there in our country.
Right, yeah. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Vivek for doing this conference, connecting the East with the West, and we are here in the middle in Dubai. Thank you, Dr. Vivek. Yes, it's, Dubai in particular is a tourist city, and there's about 40 million people come to Dubai every year. It's not a very big city, but there's a lot of traffic from around the world, everywhere in the world come to Dubai, a lot of them. So it's not unexpected to have a big load of a virus to be here. And city live on airline, as you know, Emirates airline, and live in a hotel and all those activities. That's what most of the activity in the city. And it was a very tough decision they have to make very early in the stage to stop Emirates airline, which is one of the biggest airline in the world. They have to stop it. They have to close all the hotels, which is the main business of Dubai, close all cinemas, all theaters, even all the mosques, and all those things shut down early. Then they start a lot of testing, and they have a lot of those drive-through testing. I don't know how often in the other countries they're doing this, but they have quite a few drive-through testing. They try to test everybody, and then try to be very strict on anybody have positive to be quarantined in the hospital first, and then when hospitals are full, then they start to use the hotel, which is 5-star hotel with really 5-star service for those patients who are stable and doesn't need to be in hospital. Matter of fact, many of the patients in the hospital, they want to go to the hotel now because really it's a 5-star service in the hotel, and they try to accommodate for everybody. So they have the one who are sick to be in hospital, they stay there. The one start to recover and have low cases, they put them in the hotel, and until they recover completely and negative. And if you look at the statistics in Emirates, there's about 35,000 positive patients, but there's only 266 mortality. It's less than 0.5%. Is extremely low, because of this early measure. And this is like they just kept the hospital for the sick patients, so the medical staff, they will not dilute their effect. They only work on the sicker patient, and the less sick patient, they go to the hotel. So the mortality was really, really low, and they're still doing, there was a curve where there was about a 700 case per day, but now in the last 2 weeks, it dropped to about only less than 100 probably 100 or so. Now, of course, there is a lot of community from India in Dubai. And there is one of the particular group who are really the worker. They usually live in a crowded area, and you will imagine that if one infected, the spread is so fast. And probably that explained that there was probably a little bit of spread on the crowded area than the other areas. And that may really explain why some of them back with a positive test. But as you see in your country, in our country, most cases are really not bad. All of them are really asymptomatic, and mortality rate is less than 1%. Of course, the one who get in hospital are really sick. And I found two group of people who are really sick. The elderly patient who especially have other medical issues, and interestingly, the young patient in their 20s, the very healthy young people who got sick, they get really sick. And as been mentioned earlier, Dr. Lewin and other speakers, so it might not necessarily the virus itself, but those have the cytochrome storm, and their immunity system is so strong and end up with a lot of multi-organ failure. So I have a patient now I'm dealing with is a 25-year-old young man, very healthy. He came in with acute stroke out of sudden. He was just really out of sudden stroke, and they end up with pneumonitis, myocarditis, hepatitis, nephritis, everything. And he was put on antiviral medicine, and then things start to continue to get worse. I have a little discussion with the intensivist, and actually put him with steroid. It was kind of it's tough because patients spreading down so quick, and with steroid, magically is in 24 hours, all the numbers start to get so good. The liver enzyme dropped from few thousand up to a few hundred, and so it was that particular patient still in hospital now. It's the dominant picture was autoimmune, we assume, or cytochrome. So in addition to antivirus, we give that steroid. Now we have, there is another kind of very big dilemma. I'd like to have your opinion on it for the diagnosis, actually. Who do you call non-STEMI? Those patients, about 50% of patients who have positive COVID, they have elevated troponin. Dr. Lewin, John mentioned that earlier, and the figure can be higher or lower depending on how often you're testing. But half of the patients who have COVID positive, they have elevated troponin. Not uncommon for them to have some kind of pain in the chest, and not uncommon to have some kind of non-specific STT changes. And I think this is a dilemma of diagnosis. Who do you going to call non-STEMI? Who do you going to call this is microembolization? Of course, by definition, it's calling micro-STEMI. So I'm in the process of doing a bit of a study on it, and we'd love to have everybody to get help from your side, and also get some information from US that the number of STEMI we noted we compare February to May of 2019 and February to May of 2020 for the number of STEMI and number of non-STEMI. Non-STEMI definitely is double compared to 19, and STEMI is probably half. So we have less STEMI and much more non-STEMI. So the explanation for non-STEMI is probably a diagnosis issue. If you want to call everybody have definite positive troponin and some atypical symptoms and a little bit non-specific exchange, if you want to call non-STEMI, so probably more than double, probably 5 times. But I think we don't have a good explanation to it as yet is have less STEMI. And the only thing we kind of tried to dig in a bit deeper is it probably, as you and John mentioned in his talk, probably people are dying at home. So the STEMI people, they die at home. So we have less people reaching the hospital, and we have less STEMI in the hospital actually, to our sick. And interestingly, I have 2 sons in US. They're doing their training. I told them it's a good project for you to collect the data of STEMI and non-STEMI between February 2019 to May 2019, and it's the same thing for 2020. And it'll be interesting to figure out some numbers. I think that's the explanation we have is less STEMI in the hospital because they are dead in hospital. Probably we have something else. I'm not sure if we have some other theories and so on. Regarding treatment for STEMI, the very first STEMI we have after that COVID business started to be hot, like early in February, actually gave thrombolytic therapy. And this was the first time I have to do thrombolytic therapy after 15 years. Being interventional cardiologist, every STEMI goes straight to the cath lab. So I have to go back to read about the dosage. So I read about the protocol of giving thrombolytic therapy. I didn't use it for the last 15 years. Thank God patient did really well. Later on down the line, of course, we taking for the cath lab. But I'm going back again, actually, I think thrombolytic therapy in the COVID time and COVID patient is better than intervention at this time because of multiple reasons. One, I think the STEMI patient have other microembolization everywhere in the lungs, in the liver, in the kidney. And when you're giving thrombolytic therapy, probably we're helping not only the heart, but the other ones. And if the thrombolytic therapy failed, then you can take to the cath lab. My opinion, we have I had a seminar a few days ago, and that's my opinion, of course, kind of a little bit contradicting most of the other opinion, but my opinion, I think thrombolytic therapy is better option for a STEMI in this era, unless, of course, patient hemodynamically stable, that you have to go to the cath lab. But vast majority of patient, I think we're treating multiple organs by thrombolytic therapy. And for the patient who have no STEMI or non-STEMI, every patient in hospital put them on aspirin or Blavix, put them on low molecular weight heparin, and we put them all on atorvastatin unless they have abnormal liver enzymes. And most of the patients, they're doing really well. They recover very well, actually. I just deal with a cardiac patient, but from what I see from our hospital, they seem to be very good outcome, and the mortality rate is extremely low. So we start antithrombotic, anticoagulation, antiplatelet early. We give statin to everybody, and we give vitamin C to everybody, and that's debatable, I'm sure. And there are some other recipes they give in the hospital. The chloroquine we don't give anymore. It was given in the beginning, but we stopped using chloroquine. They use antiviral for the very sick patient. So that was going on in Emirates at this time. And now things open up now. I mean, we have about a month complete lockdown. If you have to leave the house, you have to have really permission. The only medical staff were allowed to be in the street. Everybody else have to be locked down. In Dubai, you may know, there is a lot of cameras everywhere in the street. And if you are out in the street, you got a ticket. So they enforced really the lockdown very hard. I mean, you go to one of the main road in town is called Sheikh Zayed Road. Usually 1 million traffic, 1 million car every day. You take picture of that street, there was 2 or 3 at a time. So there was a very enforced lockdown. When they did it really very tough. A lot of tickets for everybody who doesn't doesn't follow the orders. And at the end, now we are coming down. Actually, everything opened back again, and we have only probably 100 cases a day, and things coming down. In hospital, actually, we now release back. We have several floors to be COVID. Now we are cutting down to probably 3 only, and the rest of them back to medical service. So things getting better here in Dubai.
Thank you, Dr. Actually, you are doing great job. Now, coming back to Dr. Lewin, just to
before that, can I ask one question to Dr. Lewin and Dr.
Yes.
And also to Dr. Mkedas. So, in India, in our Apollo hospital, we have a set of guidelines which are approved for the COVID patient. I'm not talking of STEMI. I'm talking of COVID patient in general. That means, for example, hydroxychloroquine we're still giving. We are still giving for 5 days as a protocol. We are not giving anything else. I told you that remdesivir was not available until today. I think soon, within 1 or 2 days, will be available because patented by Glide company. I wanted to know what is the protocol in your place. Suppose a doctor who is treating COVID-19 in India, should we actually go only with a guideline for Indian Council of Medical Research, or you can try some empirical treatment on yourself without any? Dr. Mkedas, what do you think? Because sometimes something can hit and the patient who is dying, I'm not talking of Ayurvedic medicine as of now. I'm talking of that those you always can give. but sometimes without naming them, for example, you want to use extra plasma treatment. You already done 1 to 2 doses, and it's the guideline that further it may not be required. So should we really stick to the guideline of ICMR, or you can, for example, hydroxychloroquine 5 days is done, patient is still very serious. Can we continue HCQS or not?
Yeah.
Okay,
The thing is that,
and then I will request Dr. Jack Lewin to tell what is going on, and then Omar Alek.
yeah.
Okay.
So far, our protocol is concerned, we are following the ICMR guideline, but it is mostly for preventive side.
No, I'm not talking. My question is, if the guideline is saying something else, a person who's treating the COVID-19, a patient is sick on ventilator, we have done everything. For example, we have done plasma therapy. And that is recommended only for 3 times. You can do it, and then it's not recommended. If somebody wants to further do it further, can we go ahead, or we have to really be, or we'll be sued that you are doing something which is not in the ICMR guideline? This is what I want to know.
From our side, actually, we are not recommending the chloroquine because of 2 facts. First one is the viral load. We do not know what is the viral load. He is a very, very sick patient, and all kinds of hypoxemic, as well as the cytokine storm, as well as the myocarditis, as well as the thromboembolic phenomenon. All these factors are playing together, and which might actually be a sort of harbinger for all kinds of arrhythmogenicity. And that is why we are not giving chloroquine in this kind of very, very serious patients. So that is our thing which we are following in our scenario. But what we are giving, that all the health workers, including the doctors, they are getting the prophylactic treatment so that actually they don't develop, or they, even if they develop, they have lesser kind of immunological problems due to the COVID.
Jack, what is your stake? I want to know, Jack. I want to not for hydroxychloroquine. Let me ask my question again. If
I heard your question.
Not FDA approved,
Yes.
you understood?
Should we follow the guideline or not? And I think, you know, because there's so little known about the therapeutics of this virus, then people are trying a variety of things. There are some people who are routinely anticoagulating, and some hospitals that are doing more of that than others. There are some that are, you know, using a variety of antibiotics, you know, beyond azithromycin as well. But you know, so there really are a variety of things happening. I think that the malpractice risk, if you will, the liability risk is less because of the urgency of the problem and the you know, the evolution of the science. We don't know the answers to these questions yet. I think that I agree with Dr. Halleck that most of the presentations of cardiovascular complications look like acute coronary syndrome and non-STEMI. But I also want to say that I think your theory is very wise to use the fibrinolytic treatment for people who do present with STEMI because of the likelihood of thrombotic phenomena in other organs in the body, and because of the incredible risk of infection of the hospital staff during a PCI procedure. So I think that there's so much we don't know, and we should all be sharing information and learning together because this is a whole new world for us.
We have one patient actually, only yesterday he was hospitalized with acute coronary syndrome. Unfortunately, I was supposed to do angiography only yesterday. In the morning, I was told he's COVID positive, which we're not expecting because he came so our cath lab staff, because we don't have a dedicated cath lab. So as such as a protocol, I have not done angiogram as of now. Jack, what will you do in such scenario? You have COVID positive acute coronary syndrome and he's hospitalized and he requires urgent angiogram. Should we take it to the cath lab or should we not take it in the absence of a dedicated cath lab?
I would really follow at this point, even though we're behind in the science. I would follow Dr. Halleck's advice. I would use a fibrinolytic approach rather than a cath lab.
He's not actually a STEMI. He's an STEMI.
No, okay. Well, in that case, I think we don't have a really good set of answers yet. Not very good science, but I think you would use your best medical therapy approach
until he becomes negative.
Pardon?
Till he becomes COVID negative, and then you would like to do angiogram.
Yeah, then you could do that. But I think that you probably, you may not gain that much from it, and I think you'd be better off to follow best medical therapy in that patient.
Yeah, I think for regarding STEMI, I take multiple variable in the same time. Number one, the time to onset of symptoms to the first medical contact. If the patient come in within 2 hours, definitely thrombolytic therapy, because actually the data shows within 24 hours, within 2 hours, there's not really much different gain you get from the angioplasty. So the variable number one is the duration of symptoms. So the longer the duration, I start to go toward intervention. The shorter the duration, I will just go for thrombolytic therapy. And my threshold for thrombolytic therapy is much, much lower than ever before, number one. Number two, of course, the hemodynamics. If the patient is stable, thrombolytic therapy, because angioplasty may not give you much gain, and there is a lot of risk to all the staff. There is usually logistic reasons. There is delay of taking that patient cath lab. There is risk of infection. The complication rate has been reported about 20% increased complication rate if you do any procedure on COVID patient. Any procedure, endoscopy, cath lab, anything, there's 20% increased complication rate to the patient, and there is higher risk to expose all the staff to another risk. And there's also another kind of things, logistic reason. You have to sterilize the whole cath lab again. And if the cath lab connected to other room with the same ventilation system is going to spread more and more. So my threshold to the thrombolytic therapy is kind of much lower now. And actually, I'm reading more about how to treat to do the thrombolytic therapy, because at this time, I think the problem with COVID is really micro diffuse, micro thrombosis and embolization. It's not DIC. DIC is different mechanism. This is a micro embolization, and I think the liver enzyme, when we see it, is infarcted liver, and the slight elevation of a troponin T, we see it in every patient with COVID, is micro MI. And not uncommon, we are seeing a lot of stroke patient and so on. So it's, I think it's the dominant picture now is really the thrombolytic therapy and anticoagulation. Now back to the question Professor Vivek asked, which is a very interesting question. Should we follow a guideline? In my opinion, at this time, I don't think anybody in the world can call themselves expert. I don't think there's any expert in the world of COVID, because everybody in the learning curve, and whatever the experts say today, tomorrow they change their mind. So it is different from guideline about hypertension or guideline of dyslipidemia. There may be some people who can call them expert that will do all day long for 20 years. But this COVID business, I don't think there's anybody can claim they are experts. Matter of fact, there's unfortunately everybody in the world call themselves expert. Now everybody in the dermatologists, they think they are expert in COVID and all kind of recommendation. But a real expert, I don't think anybody there. And the one who put the guideline, that their thought at that particular hour, and that changed after 6 hours to 24 hours. They may have different, and I mean, to confirm that the business of chloroquine, it was the best medicine, and there's some report it's the best things. Magic medicine turned to be, it caused more harm than benefit, and so on. So I think in my practice here, we try to use common sense. We notice from our clinical practice, there is a lot of elevated D dimer, a lot of elevated of troponin. So that explains there is a lot of micro thrombus. So give antiplatelet, give anticoagulation as much as the patient tolerated. If the patient doesn't need to be intubated, do not intubate patient, because that's the beginning of very bad problem. Try to keep the patient unintubated as much as possible, because intubation causes more lung damage than benefit. So basically, I don't think we're following a guideline. We're following what the recommendation, and if we have somebody have real big series somewhere in the world, they found some good result with particular things like atorvastatin. Atorvastatin, there's some report it may work. Matter of fact, I'm now working on a project to see if PCSK9 inhibitors have some effect. And it would be great if we can collaborate with John and with Vivek and Dr. Das and everybody, if we can pull our data together, the way I'm kind of working on the study, we love to work together on it. patients who are on PCSK9 inhibitors and very easy to catch those patients, do they have more infection comparing the other, more positivity compared to their matching group, and do they have more
Right.
hospitalization or mortality? I think will be very interesting, a very hot topic to discuss and come up with some idea. There's a few other ideas. I think the time is running out, but there's a few things probably we'll have some other meetings to discuss. I have a lot of in my mind.
You'll come again on Thursday. You'll come again on Thursday. You can discuss on that Thursday.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I mean, it has been really good conference today.
But stay back. Our friend from Pakistan would like to speak. Then I will request again Dr. M.K. Das to start coordinating, because as you were talking that after Dubai, let to have Dr. Abdul Rashid Khan to just speak about 3 minutes about what is going on and what is the planning in Pakistan.
Thank you very much, Vivek Gupta, for inviting me to this August meeting. Actually, still in Pakistan, the cases are on the rise. And although the reason may be because we have started more and more cases, and the more cases are being tested, so the more cases are behind. We have crossed more than 1,500 deaths, and more than 70,000 patients have been found positive. But the good thing is that there are a good number of patients who are improving as well. More than 25,000 patients have recovered fully. Today, two of the companies in Pakistan have launched the injections of remdesivir antiviral without costing about 20,000 rupees a day, and they will costing about 10 to 12 dosage. So as far as the cardiovascular system is concerned, all patients who are coming with the ST elevation MI, they are subjected for primary PCI if they reach in time. The problem is that now less number of patients are coming to the hospital just because of fear of the COVID. And so we actually don't know the number of cases has dropped considerably in the setup where the primary PCI is being done. So patients are preferring not to go to the hospital because of the fear of the COVID. So that and rather they are going to the places where the intervention is not being done. So they are being treated medically, and the treatment of medical is concerned, as the Dr. Omar has said, the anticoagulations and the supportive treatment. Only the patient who has got unstable hemodynamically, they are subjected for the PCI, or if the patient is reaching to the place where the PCI is being done, now they have dedicated one cath lab. If they got more than one cath lab, they have dedicated one cath lab for COVID positive patients. So as far as the medical treatment concerned, we still not using the chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine as a preventive measure till now, because of the fear that we still don't know the data about if really happening beneficial or not. And you know that with Desmond, the mortality has been increased, and in the France, it has been banned now to use the hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine as a preventive measure. So there are multiple regimes have been treated as confirmed that because of the suspicion that it has the microembolizations, the role of anticoagulation is increasing in Pakistan. As empirically, if they are being used, the antibiotics, they're using the cortisone as well, but definitely there's no such treatment as being still we are in the learning phase. We don't know what is the actual cause and why should be happening. So we are, as the other part of the world, we are still in the learning phase, and we hope one day we'll know the actual cause and the treatment, and we are still waiting for the vaccine. In Pakistan, we have got more than 175 labs which are trying to build up the vaccine, and hopefully the vaccine on human will be started in the say about in October. So we still don't know what will happen with the COVID and how long we'll be having. As far as the COVID lockdown is concerned, we have eased out the lockdown a lot. because of the academic burden and the pressure from the.
Sorry, I had to cut you off earlier because I'm in the we are in a webinar, international meeting.
So we are on the same path as the other part of the world.
Okay. Dr. Yashpal Sharma would like to comment, and then Dr. M.K. Das would again, because he has to coordinate everything. But Yashpal is waiting for a long time because he's very proactive for thrombolytic therapy, even for cardiogenic shock. What do you say?
Thank you, Dr. Vivek. In fact, as we discussed earlier, about 1.5 months back, in fact, we were advocating since February that this thrombolytic followed by 2B3 inhibitor should be given to these patients. Because fortunately, we have experience from COVID-1, MERS-1, H1N1, that patients who are having sepsis or otherwise in cardiogenic shock, if you treat the comorbid diseases, the patient outcome is better. So basically, it was our strategy which we were following from 2011 onward. All comorbid diseases, sepsis, renal failure, everything has to be treated. Otherwise, when a patient goes to the cath lab without this one, some patients are having pneumonia or otherwise, as I told earlier also. So it is really very good to listen that whole of the world has started thrombolytic for sepsis and other patients. Basically, Dr. Vivek, if you know that WHO has revised its guidelines, the threshold for giving antibiotics in such patients which are hemodynamically unstable should be very low. They should be treated very aggressively with antibiotics. Basically, the patients who had high count and lymphocytes were low, the mortality was more in those cases. If you see the Wuhan series, Washington series, which has been published in NEGM. So basically, it is also that antibiotics should be given very aggressively. So if you are treating the infection as well as treating the virus, and secondly, we have communicated to NEGM, and this is also published in BMJ also. Albumin is an antiviral agent. If we are giving albumin to these patients 4 or 5 days, they become negative after 5 or 6 days. We have treated about 10 patients of COVID here, including children with very low ejection fraction, 10-15%. Their ejection fraction also improved. So this is our discovery. Basically, this is novel, innovative therapy of giving albumin in sepsis and in viral. As you know, we had a communication, this one regarding this earlier also when there were patients. So basically, it is such a good thing. So I will just tell about the hydroxychloroquine. It is very much good for healthcare worker. If you are giving it to the COVID patient where myocarditis is there, the chances of arrhythmia is more. But patients who are not just healthcare workers, not having COVID positive, in those cases, it will be useful because we are having a project which will start from cardiology. Cardiologists should always be there for giving hydroxychloroquine. As you already said that QTC dispersion should always be seen. And those patients who are having cardiac problem, they should be screened. They should not be given left and right this hydroxychloroquine, even prophylactic. So basically, other drugs coming, as you said, remdesivir will be coming. Hopefully, vaccine will also come. We have to take all precautions, all medications. Solidarity trials are going on. So this is that our threshold for taking to the cath lab should be very low. And if we have thrombolysis followed by 2B3 inhibitor, 99% and giving maximum medical therapy, they do not need any emergency angioplasty. This is our experience, which we have sent to Indian Heart Journal also. And by this, we could reduce the mortality of acute coronary syndrome, including cardiogenic shock, including comorbid diseases, to the least in the world. So just my humble submission that thrombolysis followed by 2B3 inhibitor should be tried in all. So COVID will get controlled. If there is a mortality, 1,000 patients get infected. If there is this one survival negative, only 1 or 2% will be infected. So that is our policy here in PGI, Chandigarh. Thank you, Dr. Vivek. I think this is
Yeah,
what I want to say.
Ashokan is there for a long time listening. Your comments, and then we can take Dr. Kailash again.
Congratulate Dr. Vivek Gupta. I think it's a 9th seminar on COVID. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. A little loud. Please go a little loud. Please speak a little loud.
So, very important thing, listening to Dr. John Lewin and Dr. M.K. Das and Yash. Important thing is, since we don't know what exactly the reason for the mortality, higher mortality in our phase 2. Is it myocarditis or because of the ACS? That's the main problem. If patient has STEMI and has no other systemic involvement like pneumonitis or hypertension or cytokine storm, then the dilemma starts. Which antiplatelet drugs we have to use? I think now there is a tendency to using prasugrel rather than clopidogrel and ticagrelor in this situation. Because there are few cases of stent thrombosis. Those are done with other antiplatelet drugs in COVID patients. And these are cases studies published from Spain. I think because there's an interaction with clopidogrel, ticagrelor with antiviral drugs. I think the drug of choice should be prasugrel rather than other antiplatelet drugs. So, and second one is what the role of biomarkers in this situation was not helping us to stratify the risk or not helping to diagnose the situation also. And third one I would like to pinpoint here is most important thing is we are moving from acute situation to chronic. So I think COVID is going to be one of the reasons for more LV dysfunction that's going to come in the near future. And the chronic heart failure, this is going to be one of the reasons, whether it's the secondary to the CAD in COVID or myocarditis, we don't know. And the other one is HCQ. In health workers, it's shown that it's helpful. Can we actually use HCQ in patients, in public, under supervision, where there is clustering of cases? This is a question. I think it's,
Hello. I think Ashokan, your question is very valid. I have 4 questions coming, also 4 or 5 few questions coming from Doc Plexus, which I've got in the message. Doc Plexus platform is currently live, which has 3.8 lakh doctors connected. So I think any of you can, or Dr. Das can answer this question. First question is, what is the pathophysiology behind worsening of symptoms in COVID-19 patients with cardiovascular disease? What is the pathophysiology behind worsening of symptoms in COVID-19 patients with CVD? Dr. Das, please, can you answer?
Yeah. Already it has been discussed in detail so many times that most important factor that is related to the pathophysiology is the cytokine storm, or rather attachment of the virus to the AC, and then from the receptors it get internalized, and ultimately there is a huge amount of surge of the virus replication, and this genetic mechanism ultimately causes the viral load inside the myocardium. And what is more important, that the cytokine storm and the immunological reactions that happen along with the whole process, they cause lot of inflammation in the vascular system. And this vascular system, especially in the, if it happens to the coronary arteries, then what happens, there can be spontaneous dissection or spontaneous rupture of the coronary arteries. That is why in some of the cases of myocardial infarction or STEMI, there can be a sort of normal coronary arteries because of the fact that they have actually undergone certain kind of spontaneous coronary artery dissection caused by the inflammatory mechanism. And apart from this, as it has been highlighted by Dr. Halak several times, that this thromboembolic phenomenon or the thrombotic phenomenon that happens along with the whole COVID mechanism, that is also responsible for 2 or 3 things. Number 1, it can cause the venous thromboembolism, and number 2, it can cause arterial thromboembolism, and both these are responsible for the cardiovascular sort of cardiac or cardiovascular catastrophe. Now, if it happens to attack the venous system, then automatically the pulmonary embolism is one of the phenomenon which can happen to our to the cardiovascular system in the form of right-sided heart failure, acute right-sided heart failure, and ultimately there can be catastrophic phenomenon. And if it happens to the arterial side, then automatically it can involve as per the organs are involved. Now, if it happens to attack the heart or coronary arteries, it will cause the coronary artery disease or acute STEMI. And if it attacks the liver or kidneys or other organs, so accordingly the microthromboembolism can be manifested in the way, and it can also cause the cerebral arteritis or cerebral thromboembolic phenomenon, which can also cause the stroke, higher incidence of stroke. So these are some of the mechanisms which are responsible for the overall cardiovascular manifestations. But what happens during the immunological reactions induced the myocarditis? It can cause not only the pericardial effusion or pericardial even tamponade, it can also cause the dysrhythmia. So the arrhythmogenesis is another complication or another mechanism which can cause this sudden cardiac death. And all these are due to the mechanism of not only the pneumonitis causing the hypoxemia, but also caused by the cytokine storm, also caused by the viral load, also caused by the immunological reactions, and the spontaneous arterial dissection or venous thromboembolism.
Yeah, three more questions which are interlinked. Is ACE2 blockage, I don't know who's asked this question, a viable strategy to attenuate COVID-19? ACE inhibition can be a viable strategy to attenuate COVID-19.
Well, again, this was a very controversial issue in the beginning, that ACE inhibitor and ARBs, they act through the ACE, and during COVID, there is rise in the ACE receptors, and thereby the ACE inhibitors and ARBs, which cause the rise in the ACE, the ACE receptors. So there can be interplay between the two, but ultimately it has been shown in later studies that there is actually downregulation of the ACE receptors caused by the the COVID infection, and that downregulation can be taken care of in a better way by the ACE inhibitors or ARBs as they actually cause the increase in the ACE receptors. So in the later studies actually revealed that they can be beneficial. That is why right now all the major organizations, including Cardiological Society of India, have recommended that ACE inhibitors should not be stopped unless until it is
very started.
Yeah. If you are very much confident about your patient and your own thought process, then you can start it. We are doing it in our patients.
Okay, and I think the last thing was that what are the main monitoring parameters? If somebody asks a question, it's my duty to actually read out. What are the main monitoring parameters to consider for patients who have undergone an angioplasty? I think it has been discussed that you have to continue the medicines, you have to be increasing your immunity level. Maybe I personally feel that CoQ enzyme also increases the immunity levels along with vitamin C. I would like to tell the audience here that vitamin C dosage, which has been seen to increase the immunity, is about 10 grams per day. That was a study which was there. And the normal tablet is 500 milligrams. That means I at least prescribe 2 tablets thrice a day. It's not the 1 tablet daily, 500 milligrams. That's not enough for increasing the immunity. So all cardiac patients, I advise, especially vitamin C, to the level of 6 grams per day minimum, and along with CoQ enzyme tablet, which may help in increasing, of course, controlling the blood sugar, blood pressure. That is a routine thing which everybody is doing. So this is for those patients who have undergone angioplasty or bypass surgery. I think we have everybody has spoken, and we'll have a last comment from Dr. Jack Lewin, and then we'll have a vote of thanks coming up from Dr. Chinmay Gupta, who's my son. So I try to give him some time so that he can learn from us, and our friends Ashokan and everybody is there. So Dr. Jack Lewin, so I think you were not on video, but you were listening everything. My question is that if ivermectin is FDA approved for antiprotozoal, it's available in India. There is no human trial. If somebody who is dying, and ICMR does not give any guidelines, FDA does not give guidelines. If I'm a physician, I will try that bit. Okay, what is the harm in giving ivermectin or any other medicine for that matter if I'm not sued for doing that? So what is your say on that?
I would say that that's a reasonable thing to do. Once again, though, we're physicians. We should always study the work that we're doing. So if you're going to do it, let's gather some data. Let's learn from it. Let's find out if it's working or if it's not working. I think my final message to all of us is that we as physicians need to be leaders in this process. What we've seen in the United States is political leadership is not necessarily very effective. We need scientific leadership, and we need the respect that physicians carry among populations. So we need to be leaders in terms of where we're going. We obviously still have a lot to learn, a lot to know, and let's work together on both the research of therapeutics and the research around vaccines and better understanding of the pathophysiology of this virus. Let's learn together and share information.
To say that you are not happy indirectly with the leadership of WHO?
Well, our president is a little, our president is kind of a cowboy. Don't go by him. We're going to stay in the WHO.
No, but you have been president of ACC, CEO of CRF. You have the full right to become the president of WHO maybe in future.
All right, maybe.
Okay, so the last comment coming from the other people, I think Dr. Das, would you like to finish off the things and then we can take up for the, Dr. Lewin is invited once again on the Thursday webinar. He's agreed to do that. We'll have something more to discuss, especially the things which are left out today, that off-label usage of some medicines. I think the physician should be given the freedom. In Apollo, they don't allow. So this is what I'm saying. The physician should be given some freedom because otherwise the patient is dying. And if it's harmless medicine, we should be allowed to use it, especially when there is no specific anti-COVID-19 medicine available as of now and without any vaccine. So Dr. Das to give the final comments, and I'm just unmuting him. Yes.
I think we have come a long way actually so far the COVID scenario is concerned, and we have learned some of the points, though we are in dark about many points. But what is very, very important regarding this contagious disease is that it's not that very dangerous so far the mortality is concerned. Only in severe cases they are dying, and in India also the mortality is less than 3%, so that is very encouraging. I don't know whether there are certain kind of genotypic difference as compared to the Western counterparts. So that is one of the things which for all the Indians we should be very much encouraged about, that we should not be very much afraid of corona. So I wrote a poem on this particular corona episode, that corona se dar nahi. We have enough stocks to fight the stocks, to fight the hawks. So we need not be very much worried about it if we follow certain principles, and those principles are very, very simple. The sanitization, then face masks should be used by most of us, and also the social distancing or physical distancing. And if we really follow those things, and if we follow also follow the other kinds of advisories that are given from the regulatory authorities from time to time, then definitely we'll be able to overcome.
Somebody wants to speak in between? Okay. Sorry.
So we'll be able to overcome the corona.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to thank Doc Plexus and Dr. Kirtika Dhingra is there. She can just say hello, and then because they have been very kind enough to transmit live, and this will be recorded and will be shown multiple times. Dr. Kritika, are you hearing me? I'm trying to unmute you, but not able to do it. Dr. Nitin from Doplexus, I think there's some technical problem. Okay, so I think, I thank everybody for this webinar. Ashokan, nothing else to speak. We will do that in the next webinar on Thursday, and we're trying to bring Honorable Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, if he's available. He said he might come and just some social message, because Uttar Pradesh was worst affected at once upon a time. And I can see my son, just say a word of thanks to, he's gone again. I'm unmuted because I want him to speak. So before we finalize in the last 30 seconds, Chinmay, please speak out and just say thanks to everybody.
Okay, dear doctors and participants on Zoom, as well as on the doctors who are watching us on Doplexus, I thank Dr. Ashokan, Dr. Lewin, Dr. M.K. Das, Dr. Yashpal Sharma, Dr. Abdul Rashid from Pakistan, everyone for joining this webinar and providing their experience and views. Thank you so much. I'm really glad to attend this webinar.
Jack, let me tell you, he was 3-year-old when I was working with Alain Crivier in France, and he was a student of French school at that time.
Very good.
And when Alain Crivier meets him again, he feels so happy. He was here in India for Hyderabad Live, and then we keep meeting in Europe IECR. I don't know when the conferences will start. It's something I think even the next year we are not too sure. Greg Stone was, last week he was there live. He said TCT is cancelled and cancelled. That means they're not doing in February, March. If at all they will do in, of course, next September. So thanks everybody. We have to keep meeting on webinar, of course, unless we start meeting again on conferences.
Thank you too, Vivek. Thank you very much.
And we meet again on Thursday. Thank you very much. Namaste to everybody. I'm finishing off. Thanks to everybody.